this going to be for all of us? To see not just an aerial view, but a nocturnal aerial view. One where you can observe all of the magical things. And what's wonderful about this is it's not just going to be the big cats following the stories of the big cats, but the nocturnal creatures that we hardly ever get to see on our daytime drives, even in midwinter where it's cool enough for them. We don't necessarily get to see them. I'm just double checking around for Tingana. He appears to have disappeared, and there's just some very confused looking impala staring at me. He must have headed towards the drainage line around the lodge, unless he's decided to return towards his paramour. Enjoy this. Now apparently you're flying straight over Inge's house, which is where I live, and apparently it's showing up pitch black, which it was pitch black, which suggests that it was cold. I can speak from very firm experience that the inside of the house certainly doesn't feel cold on these boiling summer evenings. That, of course, is because, interestingly, the roof was colder than the walls. Now, Brent and I just moved our bed away from the western-facing wall due to the fact that it was radiating western wall, picking up this heat from the sun, or the northwestern wall. And there you go, back to the hot trees, which is an interesting aspect. I didn't expect that, to be completely honest. I didn't realize that trees were going to be exuding that much heat in the evenings. I'm trying to figure out the biology behind that. Of course, they're absorbing heat during the day, but so is the ground. I'm trying to figure out what processes are going on. Now, of course, we know that leaves photosynthesize at night, and the trees then respire. So the same processes, the same metabolic processes that we do during the day, or during all the time. Respiration, converting the glucose to energy. And if you're really interested, adenine triphosphate, used for little parcels of energies. Oh, okay. Now, Ryan's just let me know that we need to change camera batteries, so let's do that quickly. Let's stop on the dam wall. I'll keep scouring for Tingana. So that's why the trees are giving off heat. It's respiration. That's exactly what they're doing. Photosynthesizing happening mostly during the day, and processes of respiration occurring during the evening and giving off that little bit of heat that we're seeing coming from the trees. Then is if the drone spots something fascinating for us, we will be able to race off and view it from the vehicle itself. And as we move further and further into winter and the nights grow longer, we will be able to enjoy these opportunities more and more frequently. And Rust Pipe is already on it, in a true Wild Earth tradition of naming our different pieces of technology and various things that we see. Rust Pipe has suggested that we call the drone camera the owl camera. And it's certainly a factor that we shall consider. Definitely needs the name. Here you go, more of those white long trees. And the darker black cooler patches that you're seeing. And back down on the ground. And what I'm going to do now is make my way across towards Quarantine. I've just seen lightning flashing off in the distance, so maybe the end of this heat is in sight. This afternoon, when everybody set out on their sunset safari, it looked as though there was going to be a tremendous storm, and it promptly blew straight past us, and the sun came out once again, and temperatures skyrocketed once again. And hopefully this storm decides to stay with us this time around. I want to just test something, because driving along like this, I'm not going to spot anything if there is something to be spotted. So I just want to test and see how this camera works with the spotlight moving around with it. And James, I'm sure, will be watching and mocking my spotlighting technique. And as I drive along, now that I've tested it with the spotlight, let's try without any light, and hopefully my eyes have adjusted enough to the moonlight to be able to see where I'm going. Here we go. We've got a stunning sky. The moon has taken this opportunity to disappear behind a cloud. I'll try and turn so that we can see what that looks like from this camera. Here we go. Let's see how that, whoa, that's so cool. That is awesome. That's like looking at a daytime sky almost. There you go, the almost full moon hiding behind the clouds that are slowly building back up again. How awesome is this? Just imagine the possibilities. And you get nighttime ambient noise, the crickets moving through. And Brian, as always, proving that he is an incredible cameraman, experimenting with a new camera and still managing to bring you extraordinary images. All right, let's try this driving in the dark. Hey, I see the drone. I can see the drone. Let me try and get you a view of it. That's cool. Different from our other drone lights. Our other drone lights tended to flash either green or red. This one's got an interesting combination going on. It's a little like purple from here. See if we can catch up with it, driving in the dark. I'm going to drive a little bit slower than normal just because I can't see exactly where I'm driving. Sorry, Brian, for any bumps we might encounter. Like that one. Found that one. As I said, we get to bring you the most extraordinary images of the animals at nighttime and bring you a reflection of what's actually happening while most of the other people are in bed. But Ginny's concerned. Ginny is watching in Virginia Beach. Ginny is a bit concerned about our safety and is wondering whether or not our safety is in any way compromised driving in the dark. Well, on a night like tonight, Ginny, as I said, now that my eyes have accustomed themselves to the darkness and the moonlight, I can actually see really, really clearly. And I'm noticing that even the trees' shadows are showing up clearly. So something like an elephant, which would be probably my main concern whilst driving around at night. The elephants here tend to be very, very used to vehicles moving up and down. There's still main access roads where they're used to encountering vehicles at night. They're not in any way more likely to charge us during the evenings. And as for the rest of the animals, no, we're not in any way more that applies to all of them. They're all used to seeing people in vehicles at night. I'm not in any way concerned. I'm just driving a little bit slower than I might normally, just to make sure that I can see that I make sure that I can see the road in front of me clearly. Jenny, never fear, I promise you we are perfectly safe. The one thing you will find that we will not be doing is getting out of the vehicle while we drive along like this at night. Now, we've spoken a lot about this before, but the fact that lions in particular are very, very different animals in the evening as opposed they are during the daytime. And Christopher is loving the night drive. Christopher's watching in Arizona as we travel underneath those beautiful trees that you were watching from the drone. Christopher in Arizona, you were wondering, look at that, out of the clouds now. You were wondering if we have the possibility to see an aardvark or a honey badger. Absolutely. As I said, it's going to bring us that opportunity to see animals that we don't necessarily see during the daytime, especially in the summer months when it's still really hot in the early hours of the morning and the sort of early hours of the evening. When the nocturnal animals are still spending the evening resting up still in the shade. Christopher, if you want to see an aardvark though, I might not be the best guide to take you out. Somehow I seem to have the most bizarre aardvark, I don't know what I'd call it. Let's just say that in my entire life living in and around the bush, I have yet to see an aardvark. It's one of those weird things. It's become a little bit of an inside joke. I'm not entirely sure what it is about me that aardvarks don't appreciate, but I have yet to see one. But yes, you could definitely see an aardvark or a honey badger. Now let's try something. We're busy just testing what our view is like of this marula tree. I'm going to turn on one of my side lights and reposition it ever so slightly. Which means that I have managed to unplug my earpiece. Here we go. So all I've done is ever so slightly turn on one of the lights on the side. It's not facing directly at the tree at all, but it is giving us a really interesting perspective. So what that means is that, there you go, you can see where the brightness of the light is concentrated. Now this is just the side, my left side light. I have a side light on the left, a side light on the right. And as with all Land Rovers, it is impossible to keep the headlights on whilst the engine is turned off. Oh, hold on. Oh, it's working. That's interesting. It wasn't earlier. There we go. Perfect. And there we go. Let's see the difference that turning on the right side light would make. Oh, that's a bit bright. Oh, there we go. Awesome. So that's headlights and both side lights on. And as I said, we are testing and experimenting. So if you feel like I'm saying some rather odd things as we go along, well, okay, that's interesting. So with these lights on, you can't see my face, which means that the presenter lights, let's try turning my headlights off. That's what it looks like with the headlights off. I'm going to regain my retina control. My pupils have done some serious muscular exercising from expanding to contracting in some seriously split seconds. It's been highly interesting. I'm just blinking some spots in front of my eyes. I can see purple spots, in case you were wondering, very purple spots. And I might have lost my night vision a little bit. Interesting lesson. So for the diurnal animals, we often speak about this when we're driving in the last few moments of the sunset safari or the first few moments of the sunrise safari, that we don't like to spotlight for an extended period of time on any of the diurnal animals, the daytime animals. And that's because they, maybe not as quickly, but they suffer exactly the same effects that I just had, which is a sudden, quite temporary, it's a temporary blindness, but it definitely reduces their ability to see. And obviously that then compromises them and puts them at risk of any kind of attention by some of the predators wandering through. Right, I have regained my vision, I believe. I can see. Let's try driving with the lights on, I think, will be our next step. So, side lights on. And I'm just going to fiddle with which direction they are facing. And as I said, I can definitely see a storm blowing in. Let's see if we can see one of the impala wandering up Quarantine. I think it's an impala. Let's see if we can get a view of that. I don't think we're going to be able to. Obviously, as I said, we can't shine any lights on them. Let me see where it's gone. Where's it gone? Can't spot it. Just checking, just experimenting, just moving the side lights around and redirecting them in different directions. And I'm curious to see, we've got them forward facing. I want to just see what happens if we direct them straight at the people in the tent so that they're blinded. Wasn't my intention, but that might be the end result. Sorry, everyone in the tent. And let's try facing this one to the side as well and see how that works. So that if we pan side to side, now while we go off in search of some of the species that we don't necessarily always see, Nick Jones was wondering what animals are strictly nocturnal. There's one, Nick Jones. There's a white-tailed mongoose. That is just a little bit ahead. You got it, Brian. He's just straight through this gap. And he's running away. No, come back. Oh, gone. There you go. He's dashing off in that direction. The interesting thing, of course, Nick Jones, before I get to the actual answer to your question, is that some of the nocturnal animals are not necessarily as habituated to our vehicles as our diurnal animals or our big cats are. Where is he gone? There he is. He is. Brian, I'll show you with the spotlight. There he is. Got him. There he goes. The little flash of the white tail. And off he scurries. Awesome. Well done, Brian. He's just stopped. He's actually stopped. Should be able to get you another view. Where did you go? So back to Nick Jones's question. This was one such animal. Nope, he's vanished off. That is strictly nocturnal. The white-tailed mongoose. You might get lucky in the winter months and see them come out in the early evening. And then creatures such as, I can still see him. He's going to be on the other side of these trees now. He is at the base of, oh, he was at the base of that tree. I think he might have run off now. Try turning off and see if we can see him, spot him in the dark. Looking for that flash of the white tail. Nick, white-tailed mongoose, aardvark, pangolin, honey badgers, civets. I'm sure I'm forgetting multiple. Porcupines. These are all examples of the small and nocturnal creatures. Bush babies, we could definitely see, although they have a wonderful capacity to move. There he is. I just saw him again. He's hiding there behind that tree. There he goes. There he is. There he just moved behind that tree. And off he goes. A chameleon would also be something that is fairly easy to spot in the evenings. During the evenings they go a whitish color and they stand out really clearly in the trees. It's one of those special little guide tricks to spot a chameleon. I know that Scott in particular is very good at that. I think he might hold the record for the most chameleons spotted on our live drives over the last year or so. I could be wrong about that. I feel as though there might be an argument, but I think Scott's definitely spotted the most chameleons while I've been here, certainly. Okie dokie, Brian's going to try experiment with some different settings. What are we playing with today, Brian? Auto ISO. Okay, Brian says no, that's horrible, never mind. I'm going to take Brian's word for it. I feel as if I'm very much out of my depth in this particular instance in terms of camera angles and techniques and ISOs and all those other things. There's another something over there, but I think it's a little antelope. So as soon as I figure that out, I'm going to stop shining my lights on him. Let's see if without... I can't tell if he's still there or not, though. Oh, I can hear hyenas as well. That is another... There he is. Without putting any light. Little antelope wandering across quarantine. Little duiker. You can just see the vague shape of it. Wandering across. I hear the sounds of the drone, and I think it's time to have a look at the view from the skies once again. Let's see what the drone... Let's try and head. And I wonder if from our position the drone might be able to see first of all us, and then the little antelope as it slowly flies towards us. You can still see the trees and the white color that they exude. I imagine that the whiter trees that you are seeing are probably the more densely foliated trees. I'm guessing. I can't see exactly what you're looking at. I imagine that the marula trees are showing up whiter. I could be completely wrong about that, though. I'm going to have to go and have a look at what the drone sees. And as I said, we're playing around and experimenting, so we're going to keep trying different techniques. It's approaching us, I think. No, almost. Oh, this will be so fascinating if the drone can spot an animal for us. For example, lions moving through the bush, and we can clearly see the light of it moving through the sky. We'll be able to follow it to the sighting. Trying to reposition to just get us a view of the storm that's building up behind us, as well as the drone as it flies overhead and past us. And I'm just going to drone floating its way across towards Zoe's Road. The buffalo, it's definitely an animal of some sort. And you can see how incredibly the white is showing through due to their body heat. It looks as though they might be buffalo. Interesting for you to observe in our first test flight of this drone and the imagery it's bringing you. Just have a look at how much whiter the animal's core temperature shows up on this camera compared to the temperature being exuded by the trees. I can see where the drone is hovering over them. It'd be interesting to go and investigate whether or not it is buffalo. It seems as though it is. Just on the other side of quarantine from where we are now. The drone flashing like a beacon at us. Oh, I can hear hyenas. While we're sitting watching the drone, I can hear hyenas cackling away. A little submissive giggle coming from around Galagopan. There you go, there's another smaller animal species walking along the animal path. I think I'm going to make my way towards where the drone is now and see if we can investigate from the ground what it is seeing from the air. Animal walking down along a game path. Little blobs of white. You can see in the space. Apparently you can even make out their legs at times. This is going to be, as I said, such an interesting exercise in learning to distinguish between the different animal species from the air. I'm nearly there. I've just got to loop around towards Zoe's Road. I hear that you are all loving our experimental night drive. And just think how magnificent the possibilities are for the future as we perfect and get better at what we're doing and learn the different techniques that work the best. Where's that drone gone now? There it is, flashing lights. Let's go find out what the drone was looking at and see what it looks like from our perspective. Oh, there you go. You even got a little bit of information coming from the drone itself. And apparently you can see that it is 73 meters above the ground. If you look on the left of your screen, it will tell you the height that we are above the animals, or above the ground. I'm trying to work out what 73 is in yards, or what would that be? Now you can see all of the impala lying down on the ground. They've found their safe spots to spend the evening, lying down on the ground. And the further I look towards our southern and our western horizons, the more I see the storm that's on its way. So Karen, I know that you were wondering about the height of the drone and what we could see from 60 meters up, or in this case 73 meters, and there you go, Karen. I've gone a little bit too far away from where the drone is now. And if you look at far left, the distance that you are looking at is the distance from the tent, which is where the drone is being controlled from. So 542, I believe, half a kilometer away to the west. I'd love to know what the range of this drone is. I heard a rumor it was somewhere around 1.5 kilometers. But that might have just been a rumor. I'm curious to know. These are all facts and figures that we will iron out for you. All right. Yeah. The drone moving away from the animals and across the seat line. Not quite sure of the field of view. I'm busy trying to figure out where those buffalo and impala were that the drone was spotting. Here's the drone. It's flying almost over our heads now. I wonder what kind of heat signature we're giving off. That's interesting. Drone is basically right above us. And gone. Well, we're under the radar, Brian. Undetectable. But I do see the herd of impala that the drone was looking at earlier. I've arrived having managed to escape beneath the drone, and I think probably by virtue of moving underneath it. Apparently you're now looking at final control, the black roof, the roof being cooler than the walls of final control. I'll see if you get lucky enough to spot one of the FC ladies. Don't know if we can entice any of them to come out and test their heat signatures. Ladies in final control, any takers? Gonna dash out? And now a close-up of a tree glowing white with the ambient heat. Steph is loving the detail that she can see in the trees themselves. Steph, isn't this incredible? The clouds, the black of the roofs, and the tent and the ground. I'm actually quite jealous of all of you. I have not yet seen the images that are coming through from that drone. I would love to be able to. And back on the ground, I've made my way to where the impala herd was that you were looking at earlier. They're all sleeping in front of me. Now I've got a light tilted right down onto the ground. As you can see, there's no impalas within its scope that is shining on them. But if I duck my head down and we look further into the bush, you might be able to spot an impala there. There's one there, staring at us. Now what I'm going to try and do, I don't think we're going to be able to see them without any ambient light. Apparently you could see from the drone that some of them were standing and some were lying down. Let's try and see if I can tilt this in a way that doesn't shine on them, but gives us enough light to view them. There we go. Let's see if we can have a look at them from this perspective. No signs of them being disturbed. There's still plenty of them sleeping. Where are you, Impala? There you are. Somebody having a meal. And the lambs sleeping in the center of the herd. I'm going to try. Do you think, Brian, if I turn the side light off, we're going to... Let me try. Turning off the side light, turning off all the light around us. And just have a look there. I could see an impala shape. And just to let you know with my eyes, that is completely black. I absolutely cannot see a thing in that direction. Here we have one very fuzzy impala. Beautiful. Giving us a rough idea. We're probably about, I would say about 50 or so, or no, let's say about 40.
Nikki.
And what I want to show you, I want to see, Brian, what do you think will happen if we try and look at the storm that's coming through on the horizon? Let's see if we can catch any more flashes of lightning. I wonder if it's going to decide to time that well. There you go. Lighting up the horizon. I hope that storm decides to come across in our direction and not blow away. Bringing, there you go, a bit more. Did that come through? Yes. Might bring a bit of relief from this oppressive heat. The only description I could have given to the wind this afternoon was that it was a desiccating wind. It felt as though it was sucking moisture out of every living thing it passed. It's like standing in front of a hairdryer for the entire day. Luckily that wind has dropped, and hopefully it was slowly bringing in these rolling clouds. You can see the flashes of lightning off in the distance. Apparently, while you were watching the drone footage, you could see darker patches of ground than others. And Connie was trying to work out what on earth makes some of them darker than others, since it can't possibly be moisture. And Connie, you're absolutely right. There is very little moisture at the moment. So what makes some patches of ground cooler than others? It's difficult for me to say without being able to see exactly where they were. Connie, I could guess at maybe them being in the shadows of trees, particularly towards the end of the afternoon, so maybe the darker patches of ground to the southeastern side of some of the trees, for example, on Quarantine. But Connie, that's a bit of a guess, to be completely honest. I can't think of any reason why any parts of the earth should be less baked than the rest of them. There's the moon, tucked once again behind the clouds. I have to tell you something, there's nothing more beautiful than a full moon evening in the African bush. First of all, because of our ability to see fairly well with what little ambient light the moon provides there. The stars, not often we get to look at the stars either. I'm going to, I wonder which star are we looking at there? Look at that. Twinkling away in the distance. Because I can actually see Orion's belt. I'm trying to work out if that's what we're looking at. Don't think you can. Fair enough. Just out of our reach from where we are. Oh, there we go. Well done, Brian. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Orion's belt, a constellation that everybody is familiar with around the world. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it might appear slightly different. But the three kings of Orion's belt, Alnitar, Alnitak, and Mintaka, the three stars in a row. And of course, Orion, the great hunter, visible in South Africa from around November to about May. The great hunter that boasted he would kill all of the animals. And the goddess, I think it was the goddess Artemis, didn't appreciate that particular threat. And since he'd underestimated the power of nature, sent Scorpius to go and, Scorpius the scorpion, to go and target him. Sorry, yes, it was Scorpius. And he stung Orion in the heel, mortally wounding him. And when they both fled to the heavens, they chase each other through the night sky, which is why you only see Orion in summer in South Africa, and Scorpius in winter. And of course, we talk about our Western constellations and myths and stories, but the local people have their own completely different interpretations of the shapes that stars have, yet they still interpret them as shapes. I know that there are star constellations that are thought of by the Bushmen to be what we would know as a journey of giraffe moving through the sky. Interesting how human beings across the globe have given stars those meanings, coming to those conclusions, and of course completely independent, completely different comparisons and stories behind them, but they still have stories and they still give them shapes. Awesome. Okay. Right, well, let's carry on and see if we can figure out where those buffalo were. Let's see if we got it correct and that they were actually buffalo that you saw feeding, grazing around. Oh, hold on one moment. The difficulties of driving in the dark is that you put things down in the dark. There we go. I found Rusty's immobilizer. This is good news. We're not going to be trapped here. Paul, you are absolutely right. I was actually honestly on this same wavelength that Paul was. Paul was saying, just imagine how cool it would be to follow the Nkuhumas on a night hunt. And honestly, Paul, that was my next step, was to head across towards where they were last seen, which is around Sydney's Dam, and see if we could pick up on any sign of them. It looked as though, from what we heard, although Scott had them completely fast asleep, I just need to turn my light on to make sure I'm going the right way. It looked as though they were thinking about heading to the south, wandering down towards Boyatella. Let's keep our fingers crossed, but Paul is absolutely right. Imagine how exciting it's going to be able to view the lines of any pride or any coalition. Bless you, Brian. Bless you, Brian. It is very dusty this afternoon and this evening. Just imagine following the lionesses, or at least being able to view the lionesses on here's a big dark shape. Even my eyes have picked that up. That's your buffalo that you were looking at with the drone. Now on my left side, I'm going to turn on my right light, my right side light. So without shining it, there we go. Here's the buffalo that you were looking at from the drone. The drone busy changing its batteries, or having its batteries changed. I don't think the drone is actually physically changing its own batteries. Now that is with a light on my right. From the position I'm in, I can't turn the light on my left on without shining it directly at them. But I can turn on my headlights on low, and we can get an idea of the shape moving around to the left of us. It just came looming up out of the darkness. You can see how unaffected they are by our presence, because without shining a light on them, here you go, you can see one on the right as well, just hanging out, enjoying a bit of afternoon or evening grazing, and taking the opportunity to feed while it's a little bit cooler. I imagine that they spent most of the day desperately either in mud wallows, if they could find it, or around the Galago Pan or the Djuma Pan, wallowing in the water and trying to stay cool, or else ruminating in the shade of the trees. Usually you'll find that animals try to make the most of the cooler hours to get as much feeding done as possible, so that they don't have to be moving around and standing in the hottest times of the day. Although that becomes less and less true the further into the drought we go, at which point the animals need to feed more continuously in order to meet their nutritional needs, which is why you quite often see the hippo around the Djuma Pan out feeding. It means that he's not getting as much as he needs during his nocturnal wandering. Hello, buffalo. And the white of the bald patch around his face is what's showing up to me the most clearly, from the buffalo on the left. Oh, and turned away. It looks as though he's got a lighter patch around his back as well. Right, I think I'm going to leave the buffalo for now and start heading in the direction of the Nkuhumas. Oh, the last we heard, try to turn that off. Take my headlights off as well, so that we can experiment with as little light as possible. The last we knew of the Nkuhumas was 2 days ago when they separated. They were around Galago Pan. We know that they were hungry when we left them on the sunset safari, and they had big round bellies by the time, or at least one of them did, by the time I walked one of them on the sunrise safari the next day. But they had split up, and we couldn't quite work out, we still don't know to this day, exactly why they split off the way that they did. One lioness going across to Simbambili, the others moving into Buffelshoek. But they have all reunited around Buffelshoek Dam. And now, 2 days later, there's a very good chance that they will be thinking about hunting. Now, this time of month, with the moon as full as it is not their favorite hunting time. So leopards and lions like those dark, windy nights, either cloudy or new moon, so that the prey species don't have as good a vision as they might have on a night like tonight. Battery? All right, we need to change our camera battery, so bear with us, don't go away. Stay with us. We might just disappear from your screens for a little bit. We'll be back up and running very, very shortly. I'm just going to provide Brian with some light at the same time. And while we do that, let's pop over to the dam cam. I'll be with you shortly to continue your night drive. We're back once again. I am struggling to drive while the moon is behind the clouds without any headlights on. So I've got my headlights on dims for now. Let's make our way across towards Sydney's Dam and figure out what's happening while the drone takes the opportunity to charge itself back up. I hear news that Scott might be out in Jigger as well, just to provide us with a second vehicle and some entertaining moments. I'm going to just try and double check. I'm not going to be able to spot the lions if they're on the side of the road without using a spotlight. Although hopefully, let me do this. There we go. The side lights should definitely help us out. And there's been a definite drop in temperature as the clouds start to roll in, which is good news for us. And who knows, you might be with me when I see my very first aardvark on Djuma. We'll keep our fingers crossed. I think I've ticked off all of the other main nocturnal species that we could see here, including the striped polecat, which was definitely a surprise and probably my most unusual sighting to date. I just haven't seen an aardvark, and I definitely haven't seen a pangolin while I've been on Djuma. I have seen a pangolin elsewhere. The pangolin, for those of you who are unfamiliar, looks something like a walking artichoke crossed with an armadillo. and I believe that Mr. Scott Dyson is now out and about to provide you with a second view of the evening from one of our normal cameras. So let's have a look at the difference.
Hello, and what fun is this? I've just been glued to the monitor with that drone feed up on quarantine, and such exciting prospects from the images that we've already seen. So happy that the nocturnal experiment is so far going very well. I'm not too sure exactly what shots you guys have been seeing, but I'm sure you agree that those thermal images are quite remarkable. Now, I hope Jamie gets lucky with the Nkuhuma ladies at Sydney's Dam. I've got a feeling they're still going to be there. We went in and checked on them as there was a report of them coming south towards us, but sadly not. When we arrived there, they were all just lazing about on the northeastern side of the dam. So it'll be interesting to see if they've moved at all. And Jamie will have an update for you guys about that shortly. What I'm hoping for is a few smaller critters, possibly a chameleon, and I know of a scorpion that lives in a tree. I mean, who would have thought that that would be the case, but it is. So I'm hoping that our scorpion friend is going to be here, and then I'll pull out my UV torch and you'll get to see some great views of it. Good evening to Rhodey, who is joining for the first time and is not sure whether this is actually happening right now, and obviously the fact that I'm answering your question confirms that it is. It's hard to believe. If I was in your boots, I probably wouldn't believe what I was telling you. So apologies if you do not think it is real, but we've got a team of technical wizards that have strung together a whole bunch of equipment, and now you're getting an incredible live feed. We're not usually out this late at night. We usually broadcast from 4 until 7 p.m. Central Africa time, but tonight we're doing some experiments. So you guys are getting to see basically some behind-the-scenes exclusive nocturnal footage of a camera on Jamie's vehicle that's got a high ISO. This is just a regular camera, so we'll be using the spotlights and then those thermal images from the drone. Dave, if you just shine into this log that I'm shining on here, this horizontal branch, and there's a little kind of knot in it. I'm fairly certain, slightly to the right, slightly more, there's a little hole there. I'm fairly certain that some of you may remember seeing a scorpion in this very hole with me. So I'm just going to jump out with my UV torch quickly. Just going to scan around. you back to Jamie, and I'm sure she's going to have an exciting update for you with the Nkuhuma Prize.
I'm going to hold off speaking for now in case our audio isn't coming through to you all. So we'll just leave you with this view of a waterbuck. Very similar to the impala, lying down, resting in the evening. Left and right.
Yeah, let's see how it looks.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's too dark.
Try left. No,
No, you both are mine. That's the one you want.
Here we go. We seem to be back up and running with our audio. And we're just testing the different amounts of light that we can see. The one thing that has happened is that the cloud cover has moved completely across the moon now. It's fairly thick, much thicker than it was before. And it looks as though this is going to be a fairly permanent state of affairs for the rest of the evening. Okay, it doesn't look that dark when we look at it with this camera. You have to take my word for it when I say that the moon, to my eyes, has all but disappeared. Camera completely changing what we can see. The view of the night sky for me is to be the highlight of this particular experience. To just be able to see the clouds rolling in and the horizon and the trees is such a treat. A view that we've never seen before. And then, of course, to be able to watch our diurnal animals without bothering them at all with any kind of light. Look at that. The green of the trees showing up clearly where my vehicle light is highlighting them. And in the back there, that waterbuck still completely unconcerned. It's aware that we're here, obviously. It heard the vehicle approaching, but not bothered in any way. We're right up close towards Sydney's Dam. I think we should continue on our way and figure out if those... Oh, hold on. Who's coming through on the left there? Is that the second water? Yes, it is the second waterbuck. So to me, all I could see there was just the glint of an eye moving through. The rest of it is complete black, pitch black for me. And yet in your screens you can make out the details of what looks like a male wandering through. Yeah, there we go. You can see his little horns, a young male. The white ring around its bottom showing up incredibly clearly. Although it looks like he's right in my spotlight, he actually really isn't. He's behind the trees at a distance of about 40 meters. I have got my vehicle's side light on, but if we have a look at where the focus of that beam is projecting, there, that bright white of the log, that is where the light is directed. It's pointing right downwards, so it's not in any way affecting the waterbuck. They'll be aware of it, but it's not bothering them.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
We really do apologize for that, but we are back up and running. Now we really get to view elephants at night as well. And just to let you know, the drone is back up and running. It is charged and it will be up fairly soon. An incredible experience to see. All I could see was this dark shape looming in front of me. I wonder if there's any more that are going to come across the road. They must have just been having a drink at Sydney's Dam. No sign of the Nkuhumas, and so far no sign of their tracks coming back south. It could be that they decided to change direction and went further north into Buffelshoek, or they might have popped out further east along Buffelshoek cut line. Just checking very carefully now for elephants on either side of us. We also, while you were away from us for that brief period, we also saw 2 subadult hyena wandering away from where Shadow's kill. We suspected Shadow. Now, I know that for those of you watching this morning from Brent's Sunrise Safari, there was that drag mark across the road, clearly a leopard kill, that had then been stolen by the hyenas, and Brent hypothesized that it was stolen away by the hyenas while she went off to One-Eyed Pan for a drink, and when she came back, they'd nicked it. Let's see where those elephants are. I think we'll probably encounter the rest of the herd as we loop back around towards Main Access Road. And we'll be able to test out our viewing ability of elephants in the dark. And won't that be an incredible experience? You might suddenly be slightly blinded by lights as we go past Gowrie Gate. I just wanted to get you a nice view of those ellies before they disappeared across the road. Another possibility for us when the moon is out, to be able to sit without lights and listen to the ambient sounds of elephants munching and watch them feed in the dark will be the most incredible experience. It's going to take me a little while to loop around to get to the elephants. And while I do that, let's go back to Scott and his wonderful scorpion. And I'll catch up with you, hopefully with some pachyderms for us to watch.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to whisper because I don't want to scare away the scorpions that are hiding in this tree. Now, basically, just follow this black light or UV torch as I slowly move it up the tree. And what you're looking for is a bright green fluorescence. I'm going to go very slowly. And you may just see the pincers of a scorpion sticking out. There's a few hiding in here. It's just whether or not, oh, maybe you'll get this one. Can you see that one, Dave? No?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you can. Okay, awesome. So what little of you can see, this little scorpion, I can tell you that it's quite a highly venomous one. It's got very thin pincers and a very thick tail, but it's small. It's probably only an inch long. Not much to see there though, so let's try and find you a bigger one. Keep going up the tree. Oh, I think there's another one there. But it's another small one, highly venomous. Small pincers, you can't see its tail. But it's like a knife and fork. Now, the jackpot. Look at that, the hyena's calling in the background. Playing along perfectly. Just gonna keep quiet. Another one's now calling. And it sounded like possibly even a bushbuck alarm calling. Anyway, this is a big scorpion, but it's unlike those little ones that are highly venomous. This one has got big pincers like a crab or a lobster, so that indicates to you that the danger comes from the front. Scorpions that are highly venomous, their pincers will be like knives and forks. You won't even notice that they're really pincers. They'll look like the legs of the scorpion. Now, to give you an idea of how acute the scorpion senses are, I've got myself a little scorpion fishing rod. It's just a very thin blade of grass, and I just want to trail it past the edge of its tunnel, if I can reach, and it'll be able to sense the vibrations, and it'll probably come out and try and grab it. Watch here. Look at that. Awesome. We don't want to mess around with it too much though, but you could tell there as I drag that little piece of grass past, it's got little hairs on its pincers that pick up movements. It's even got little organs underneath its stomach that will also pick up vibrations or any kind of movements in wind and pressure. So they're incredibly good hunters, these scorpions, stealth hunters that just wait in ambush for their prey to come past. Now, speaking of scorpions' prey, there's actually some walking around in the trees. So I'm just going to get my regular flashlight out. And how awesome is that, the way they glow in the dark? That scorpion, we should actually have a look at it when it comes back out. It's pitch black. You're not going to believe it. Now, where has the prey gone? There was a massive millipede crawling around this tree earlier. I can't for the life of me see where it's gone now. But there is some prey crawling up in this tree, and scorpions will feed on millipedes as well as almost any insect that they can catch. Sadly though, it looks like the millipede has disappeared behind one of these branches. It's a big black little critter. Now, Dave, maybe it's worth trying to get a view of the scorpion now, just so we can see how black it is. See if I can't coax it out. Oh, it's windy, which is making scorpion fishing difficult. So you're just going to have to trust me though. I don't think it's going to come out now, especially because of the strong wind that's blowing. But that scorpion is pitch black, yet with the black light, it glows in the dark. One last look, it might still be visible. You can just see its pincers sticking out there a little bit. It'll come back out fully once we've moved off though. Okay, now it's time to find a chameleon. Before time runs out. I hope you all enjoyed that. I love scorpions, and it's scary how many there are. I mean, in that tree alone, just in that little probably 1.5 meters that we checked, there was probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Dave, I think that we counted. Somewhat difficult to see from your angles, but you can imagine that's 5 in a meter of just one piece of this tree. It's a massive knobthorn acacia, and it could house probably hundreds of scorpions. So, interesting stuff with the old scorpions. Now, and those are just the ones that live in trees. You also get some that live on the ground in burrows, on rocks, rocky outcrops. So you get a whole different type, or sorry, a whole different bunch of habitats that you'll find them in. Thankfully, you don't actually get stung very often. Poor old Tundi, our chef, she's been the only victim so far in my career with Safari Live, and it was by probably that same scorpion, the Epistocanthus asper. It's an arboreal scorpion, but occasionally they'll head off in search of ladies. And I think that was the one she got stung by. I've been stung by those more than any other scorpion, and it's probably, I'd say, a mild bee sting, half a bee sting. But it is important to remember, big pincers and a relatively small tail, not highly venomous. Small pincers, very big tail, danger from the back, highly venomous. You do get one species in South Africa called the Parabuthidae family, and those are nasty. You don't want to be stung by one of those. A good friend of mine who I trained with got stung on the foot 3 times. Bam, bam, bam. He was wearing flip-flops. First mistake in his area of operation, which is full. Oh, man, luck. It's a hyena, but it's nervous, and will be nervous because of this wind. Even the predators will be uppity, especially a hyena, because it can fall prey to lion if it's not careful. And I believe you also saw one with Jamie earlier. That one looks like it's been mud wallowing. It's got a very dirty undercarriage. Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a serious wind that's just started blowing, and I think there could be a storm on the way. So that'll be perfect timing, and we're going to send you across now back to Jamie. I think that's going to be the last you see of me. I'm so happy that we got to check out a scorpion at least. We'll have to do a chameleon next time on the next night drive, whenever that may be. Possibly tomorrow night, who knows. Anyway, thank you very much for staying tuned for the extra fun. Dave, well done on camera, and over to Jamie.
And I'm not sure where this came from, but we have howling winds, which obviously means that we cannot be flying the drone at any point. And in fact, Brian and myself racing back towards quarantine and towards the DRC in case the storm rolls in faster than we think it was going to. Definitely smell moisture in the air. I'm keeping my fingers crossed to rain, but most of all, I hope you are all as excited as we are about the future and the possibilities of what this camera and the different technology can bring us in terms of bringing you a whole different side to the bush experience. And while we race off home, don't forget to join us tomorrow, where there will be no sunrise safari, but there will be a sunset safari, and there will be another nighttime drive, some more practice and some more experimentation, so don't forget to join us for that. Have a wonderful day for most of you, or a wonderful evening, depending on where you are in the world. A big thank you to Brian for doing some extraordinary work and experimenting with the camera. And a big thank you to all of you for sticking with us and enjoying this experiment as much as we do. I'm going to say goodbye for now because the wind is blowing my voice out of my mouth. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.